Okay, so I think for this one, we're really gonna talk about your relationship with each other, because you guys have such a sweet relationship, and I think it would be really, really sweet to talk about how you've been like supporting each other, through the autism diagnosis, but also, in your day-to-day life. So, first question I have for you is, how did you meet?
Well, we both went to Arizona State University. I was 4 years, almost 5 years,
We both,
5 years. Yeah,
well, let's preface, we both played on the golf team
yeah, we
for
both.
Arizona
Oh,
State.
you did
Yeah,
too.
yeah, we
Yeah,
were both on
yeah,
the golf team at
yeah.
Arizona State. I was 5 years ahead of her,
4 years ahead of me.
and we'd always been friends and all that stuff, and we'd been at fundraisers, and I watched her play a few times in tournaments and vice versa. And when she got done with college, she got a job and started working with NBC Sports and the Golf Channel also at the time. And so I would see her quite a bit on the road when we get out there. And anytime you see a fellow Sun Devil, it's always good to see a friend, and we kind of give each other a hug here and there and say hi and talk about ASU and stuff like that. And one thing led to another. And, the big question, I asked her if she wanted to go out for ice cream one night. And she said yes. And that was, she's still dreading that ice cream to this day. I got her with ice cream. So, we met, and it was great because we were both already on the road so much. So much of an adjustment, and we got to see each other. And things just kind of just kept building from there.
That's so nice.
Now my point of view. No, yes, we did. We did know each other, and you couldn't go to Arizona State University and play on the men's and women's golf team at that time in our era without knowing who Billy Mayfair was. So he was the bomb, right? He was the number one recruit of his era. Now I played the same years when Phil Mickelson came along. He was my era, but he wasn't Phil yet. So we knew of each other, and then he is correct in stating that he went his way and he was married prior to me, and he came back into my world after his divorce. And where I had a John, I worked for a golf club company called Ping, and then I played the Women's European Tour for a season, and then I went to the work for the Golf Channel. And then moved my way up the so-called ladder. Ended up at NBC Sports and CBS, putting on all live golf events that you see on your television couch today. So he was always on my radar. And he asked to go to dinner one night, but it happened to be a major event where I was on air for 6 hours, which meant a 12-hour workday. And I said, there's no way I can go to dinner. So he said, how about ice cream? I'm like, well, I could probably do ice cream. Oh, okay, ice cream I could probably do. And there you have it.
Okay, this is so sweet. Do you guys play golf together now, or?
We do. It's one of our favorite things.
Yeah.
When he was playing a 30-week schedule, we kind of had a little unwritten rule for a little while, that week we were off and home, Thursdays we'd go play. And we're always asked what we play for. But in the realm of fun, that's all fun. So if I say we're playing for who's doing the dishes, he will tend to step up a notch.
That was really grinding there. If one playing for money and being out on the PJ Tour is pressure, but playing your wife to have to do who has to do the dishes is a lot of pressure, because if I won that, I just stand there and just give her crap while she was doing the
To no
dishes,
end.
and vice versa. And you have to remember too that I'm a very competitive person and all that, but I am nothing compared to my wife. Uh,
Oh,
we play golf, or we play video games, or we play card games or something like that.
Dice games.
There's no one more uh, competitive in the world than my wife. So that's why we
We're
get
a tough
so
family.
yeah.
so you guys have some common interests, but I feel like every couple has that we're complete opposite here moment. So I'm wondering what's yours?
You go
You
first.
you you want me to
You
go
go
first?
first. You
You
go
sure?
first. Yeah, you go
We
first.
are yin and yang in many a sense that if we're gonna talk foods, and we're very picky with our foods due to autism and being athletes as well. So foods that work for him won't work for me, vice versa. but we're probably odd man out, because I could let him go decorate the house and I would come home and love it. I could have him go pick out an outfit off the rack and I would love it. So we like the same music, we like the same taste of foods. Where we difference is in one very particular thing, and that is putting on the golf course.
That is
That
hilarious.
could be it. That could be the marriage breaker right there. But through learning what I have learned, it has to do with autism on why we're different.
What's your opposite view on the how to putt?
Well, as she said, her and I are on the same page. We could decorate the house and have the same colors, and and eat this. You know, we like the same types of foods and all that stuff. But it's real funny when we're out there putting, or we're even on the golf course. The way that my mind thinks when we're on the golf course, and the way her mind thinks on the golf, we are opposite sides of this of the spectrum. I think of one way. This is what I think about, and I tell her that, and she looks at me like I'm crazy. And the same way, I say, she says something to me, and I go, "What are you looking at?" I mean, so it's just different and all that. But what she sees with her putting, and I will say that, she'll say to you that she's the best putter in the family. I say, you better hope that I'm the best putter in the family. If we're going to eat dinner tonight, yeah, I better putt better than you do and all that. But we just see things different. We line up things different, and our brain just works completely different. So it's very odd that in our normal life, we do a lot of things alike. We like the same things, but when we're on a golf course or putting, we are completely on different spectrums.
So let me bring that full circle for you from an autistic point of view, because it's something I've had to learn about how his brain works. And it's, yes, is it different? But I've caddied for him on the PGA Tour. So I've carried the big bag and at a very high level for many, many, many years. And I'm grateful for my golf knowledge and golf background. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a golfer named Arnold Palmer. Have you ever heard of Arnold? Okay. Arnold was the one who taught me how to caddy. So I have background because my father played a bit and knew the greats of the game of his generation: Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, Gary Player, blah, blah, blah. And those were the gentlemen that taught me. So when I caddy for Billy, I take off the wife hat and I put on the caddy hat, and they are different. And that caddy, as I was taught, was to be there to be his shadow and to be the best that I could be to help him be his best, which, yes, you could say a wife does the same. But on the golf course, I'm limited and I'm inside the ropes, and there's a very specific goal at hand. So what I learned with caddying and with autism is Billy's senses are different than mine. So where we differ when we putt has to do with our eyes. Billy's point convergence is different than mine. So what's a point convergence? When you stare at one object in front of you, a glass of water, it's when both of your eyes come together to create one object. Okay. And most times it happens instantaneously for what we call neurotypical people, but some people on the spectrum, it takes longer at certain distances. So for instance, Billy can see the hole and have this amazing putting stat at 60 feet, 30 feet, 15 feet. He's like third on the PGA Tour with hole-in-ones from 180 to 220 yards. He can hole it. I mean, that's over 2 football lengths, right? That's a pretty powerful point convergence, okay? But at 7 feet, he's going to miss it because his brain takes longer at 7 feet to come to that one point. So I have to let him, and that took a long time to learn. It took a long time why, and it took a long time to understand how to help. So what we've learned is at 7 feet, he has to stare at that hole a little longer, 10, 15 seconds longer than any other distance. So at first, as a caddy, I'm like, dear God in heaven, you're taking too long. And that's what the rest of the world sees. And he gets in trouble for taking longer. but that's the only way his brain can catch up. So we do muscle drills for the eyes, is how we work on that. And he'll work out as an athlete with every other muscle in his body to strengthen. So he hits the ball further for endurance. But now we do muscle work with the eyes to help with that 7 feet. So what is that drill? It's a very simple $1.50 item you can buy on Amazon called a Brock string. Brock, a Brock string. It has beads along a string. And you tie this string, put a piece of tape on it, and put it up against the wall, and then hold this string to your nose. And you can move these beads along certain distances, and then you have to have your eyes stare at the bead until the bead becomes one bead. It's not at an X, it's at a V, one bead. And he's great at 3 feet, great at 4 feet. We work up our way up to 7 feet. When he first did it, you tell her.
Oh, it was frustrating. It was definitely frustrating, and you could tell a difference immediately. Um, from what just by my reactions and how long it took me, and we would sit there and say it would take 30 seconds from 4 feet for the beads to convert. But at 7 feet, she goes, "Are you there yet?" No, I still, and like she said, it would take maybe 15, 20 seconds sometimes. And it's gotten better since then because we've been working on it. But I think any golfer or any athlete, and especially if you're on the autistic spectrum, will have a distance because of the way their eyes and the way their brain are set up. That is their bad point, and you need to work challenging point. I guess that's a better challenging point. She sometimes puts better words in it than I do, but it's just something that you learn over time, and you look at stats. And I'm sure other athletes and other sports have the same thing. I know I've talked to baseball players who have worked very hard, who are on the autistic spectrum, for them to pick that baseball up from the pitcher when they're at the home plate. They got to pick that ball up so quick, and it's just making small adjustments because of the challenges that you have with your brain and your eyes.
And did you figure that out before the autism diagnosis?
No.
Or after?
No,
After.
no, it was after. It was after it started making more sense, and you reason why.
Back. I had suspicions about
She could see it.
autism.
She could. Well, she didn't have so much autism was one thing, but she kept seeing me make 10 footers or certain distance putts or seeing doing things and have no problem. And then I'd get on this one distance at 7 feet, 8 feet, and I'd struggle. And she, why are you doing that?
Here's how
Because I didn't like it, so I would get quicker.
It made it worse, right? Right. The spinning comes along. I took our son to get an eye test, and he was struggling with writing at school. And I thought at first maybe dyslexia. And no, that wasn't it. Was it attention deficit? No, that wasn't it. No one could figure it out. And this one particular eye doctor, and there's a word for it, and forgive me, I'll have to find it. But he said, I want to try something. And he had a laser, looked like a pair of scuba goggles with lasers around it. And it tested for how many times your eyes went over one word. So on this 70 paragraph word of words that our kid read the paragraph, your optimal number is 70, meaning your eye hit the word one time and went to the next word. Maxwell's was something like 320, meaning his eyes had to go over the word 3 or 4 times before it saw the word. Now, he understood the meaning of the paragraph very well. It just took his eyes that long. So the doctor told me, he said, he's smart. Smart's not the problem. It's just the eyes functioning to get to that word. So he suggested that I go to the teachers and have Max sit at the front of the classroom or the back of the classroom, but not in the middle. And when he said this, he said, because 7 feet is a hard distance for him. And I went, oh my word, Billy's putting stat, 7 feet. So I didn't tell him, and I made him an appointment right then and there and used Maxwell to kind of help get Billy into the doctor's chair. And sure enough, his was like 4 or 5 times. It was like 360, 370 times to go over this 70 paragraph word. And that's how I found out about point convergence. And a Brock string, it's a piece of string with beads on it, fits very well into a suitcase. And we just work on his muscles. And now both of them are hugely better,
Wow.
hugely better.
Never heard of this. That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is when it comes to senses, which people realize that autistic people, their senses can be heightened or different than mine, maybe. Correlating this into our golf game, the wind. Billy and I feel the wind differently. So where we may disagree on putting due to his eyes or my eyes, you can look at that either way, right? We also differ on how we feel the wind. And there was one particular instance when we were in Canada and Billy had a chance to win the event, and he ended up leaving 2 sets of contacts in his eyes. And he played this entire Sunday round of golf with 2 sets of contacts. He couldn't feel them in his eyes. And the doctor explained to me, I'm at first, from my point of view, great. Now I'm going to have to monitor, his contact lenses. What else am I going to have to do? And she said, that's not what you learned this day. And I said, what did I learn? She said, he can't feel like you do. His sensatory is different than yours. So we have a rule now when we go out and play and I caddy, I will pull up the weather app and I can say, hey, the wind is blowing so hard this day, 10 miles an hour today. But it's going to change to 15 to 20 miles an hour and change directions about 2 hours into our play. That means right when we're making the turn. So from his point of view, when he sees a hole running north and south, he thinks the wind should be blowing the same that it did on the fourth hole than it's going to on the 12th hole because they're both going the same direction. Except I know the wind has changed. Maybe changed directions. Instead of running north to south, it's now running south to north. But he can't necessarily feel that like I can. So we go through the weather, God bless the weather app, before we tee off now. So I can say, hey, if I tell you the wind's changed, you can believe me because we've seen that it may happen that day. May not happen right at 12, may it happen on the 11th hole, may happen on 13, but somewhere around that change. So
We're made aware of it. And plus, in our yardage book, we always have a compass. We have the compass on there. So because when you go to a golf course and you haven't been there for a year, you aren't really sure which way north is exactly. And you stand on the 10th hole and you say, well, that's north, but you're actually pointed southwest or something like that. So you always have to have a compass on your yardage book so you know exactly where north is, so that when she says to me that the wind's blowing from the west at such and such a knot, then I need to know where that west is, because you get turned around. I think we all get kind of turned around at times out there, even not even on a golf course when we're driving down the road or something like that. Where is north? Because we're used to seeing the sun set, rise here and set on this side. So you always have to be kind of aware of where your north, south, east, and west is.
So to go back around full circle to answer your question, we pretty much agree on most all things, except we see things a little different and we feel things a little different.
How did you not see blurry with 2 pairs of contacts on?
You want to know what he told me? I assumed everybody saw it that way.
Well,
And to his point, there were fires at that time up in Canada, so there was a lot of smoke. So he attributed part of that to maybe this is just smoke in the air.
Well, and also, to be honest with you, I was playing good and I was so focused on what I wanted to do. And I said, oh, that's kind of a funny look, but I just got back to doing my business and my job, and I played well. So maybe I ought to play with 2 contacts in more. No.
Oh, heck no. No. We played well on Friday, Saturday, and I thought we were going to win it. And he was feeling so good. And bless his heart, he couldn't focus to see that hole. And I tried everything and couldn't figure it out.
Well, no.
And I called the doctor the moment. So here's the point. That means on Saturday night, he didn't take it out. So he put the second pair of contacts in on Sunday. He drove to the golf course. We played 18 holes. We flew home from Calgary to Phoenix. He slept on Sunday night. Monday, I called the doctor, didn't get to talk to her till Monday afternoon. And I said, what's going on in his brain? And I blamed it on all sorts of other things. Was Canada a bad golf course for him? There's stuff in his past or whatever it may have been. She goes, before we delve into memories, she said, I want you to go through all the senses and cross that off your list. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, did he eat the same foods? Were the tags cut out of his clothes? Did he wear the same clothes? And I'm like, yes, yes. She said, go through eyes, ears, nose, mouth, taste, and touch. Call me back. And I sat there and went, and so he goes, okay. And I shared it with him. And he sat there and looked at me for a minute. And he goes, hold on a second. And he ran in the bathroom. Hey, I figured it out. I got 2 sets of contacts in. And I said, wait a minute. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And if I wouldn't have called the doctor, it'd still been Monday night. And I went, okay, now I know. And that's okay.
So take me back in time to the autism diagnosis. Like, what were the signs? What made you want to seek out an autism evaluation? Like all of that. I know we talked about it.
Yeah, you saw the signs more than I did. I mean,
there's a backstory a little bit to this. And for me, when Billy came into my life, he came with some baggage that needed to be cleaned up. And a first wife that very sadly had every addiction challenge. And it cost him and almost cost him and their son their lives. So in the beginning, when I would experience a meltdown of his or some not understanding, I attributed the anger, which is what it looked like to me, the anger or the rage, to very past serious situations that we were dealing with. And once those were cleaned up, I thought, oh, we should be good and go. And we had full custody of Max, and she was out of our life, and there were some bad people in our life, and they're gone. Why is there still anger? Why is there still rage? And I had a fellow tour player, PGA Tour player's wife, come up to me regarding Maxwell at first and said, I hope you don't mind, but I think he's on the spectrum. I think he had Asperger's, is what she said at the time, because they didn't clump it together under one umbrella. And I went, what is that? No, that's not what this is, because I was all over here dealing with this stuff. But her kindness and her generosity and sharing with me stuck with me. So I looked it up one day, because that's what you do. You Google everything when you don't know. And I went, there were some similar traits here. And I began clocking it. And I was in denial in the beginning. And we had so much other stuff going on. But then all of a sudden, it became inundating to me. It became too much. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I didn't understand. The TV remote control would go flying across the room because the TV wouldn't turn on. And I said, did you ever think to check the batteries? No, it should work. When I push the button, it should work. And Maxwell would bang his head up against the wall and make it bleed because he was trying to remember what I said to do. There were all these little clues along the way. And the more so what I did and what my background was, if I didn't know something, I would read. And I tried to read as much information as I could. And there was no doubt on my mind that Billy was on the spectrum. I just didn't know how to get a formal diagnosis. I didn't know how to get help. And then where his autism has helped me is I had to learn about myself on what attracted me to this autistic person in the first place. And by default, learning about myself helped me better him. And he helped better me. By default, learning about myself, I'm a fixer. I'm a trained fixer. My parents in my dysfunctional childhood made me a fixer. So autism is the ultimate fixing project, which is why I was attracted to my brilliant husband. But I'm no longer the fixer, by the way. No, no more. I will help, but I will not fix. But he made me learn that about myself. In the beginning, I was going to read everything I could and fix it myself because that's what I did. And when I came to the point where I couldn't fix it anymore and I was drowning and I didn't want to live on earth anymore, and I didn't know how to do it anymore. And by default, do I know he loved me? Yes. But was I receiving love like how I expected to receive it? No. So I'm drowning. And we came down to a one deciding, very inciting incident, is what I call it, when Billy was illegally DQ'd at a tournament on the PGA Tour. And I'm not willing to go totally in depth on that, but that was my tipping point. And I'd had it because I knew what had happened to him was wrong, very wrong. And it cost him on the tour. It cost him people calling him a cheater, which he is not. It cost us financially. And that's when I put my foot down. And in the beginning, I didn't know what to look for. So I was finding a psychologist, and the ones around Phoenix, it wasn't working. So what do I have in my advantage? We travel 30 weeks out of the year. So I started interviewing different psychologists at different tournament sites to see if they knew about autism. And we found one in Pennsylvania that I thought would be good, as her father was known as the psychologist of finding out cognitive behavioral therapy. But the daughter was not as good as the father, and personalities did not match at all. So we resigned her practice. But she gave me one good piece of information. And I said, since you're not willing to help me or my husband, who do I look for? She said, you need a neuropsychologist. And I'd been looking for the wrong doctor. So I went to look to find a neuropsychologist, which happened to be 15 minutes in my backyard. And as the gatekeeper of the family, I went to interview him first, because I know I'm going to get one shot at this. If I get him in there, you've got one shot. So the doctor better be at his top of his game, because he's dealing with a professional athlete who's at the top of his game, who's in the public eye. And despite what that may think, there are different elements that come with that. So one chance. So this doctor was a British guy and I felt very confident. He had had a Major League Baseball World Series pitcher as his client, an NFL Super Bowl player that had been a client, and other professional athletes. So I felt confident that he knew how to handle an athlete on the spectrum, and he could do it. It was an 8-hour test. It was a one-day test. I told him all of my suspicions. What I liked about the doctor is he included me and wanted to know everything. And I don't know if you ever knew this, I had to take a long questionnaire myself. What I thought all of my thoughts and experiences. Then the trick was getting him there.
Yeah. It was tough, and to answer that again, for me it was always being on the tour and being on the range by myself. I played practice rounds by myself. I traveled by myself. I stayed by myself. I never really let anyone into my own little world. And that's why I had problems with my first wife and stuff like that. And even when Tami and I were dating and then eventually got married, I still kind of did a lot of things in my own little world. And it wasn't until I was diagnosed with having the autism, and like I said, even after, as she said, I took the test for 8 hours and it came back, and I wasn't going to read it. I refused.
No.
I refused.
It was brutal. Well, let's go back to how I got him there, because we all know that was a fight. But I'd reached my point and I said, listen, I need you to do this for me. I said, this is not about you at this point. And there was truth to that statement. I needed the roadmap. I needed the help. I knew our brains were different, not bad, not worse, different. And I didn't know how to communicate to him. And by default, I needed a roadmap to help him communicate with me. And I said, did it ever occur to you by taking this test that you could prove me wrong?
That worked.
That worked.
Oh, yeah.
That worked.
Well, then it goes back to the old challenges. I mean, you challenged now, all of a sudden I was being challenged. And like I said, the report sat on the table here for almost a month. And it was during COVID, it was at the time. And it was actually very much of a blessing that we weren't traveling, that we weren't playing the tour, because it allowed me, after I read the report, my first thought, and I think anyone who has the report done and they're diagnosed with autism is, all of a sudden you go, well, no wonder I struggled in school. No wonder I had problems with other kids. No wonder I didn't date that much in college or in high school. The social cues that people always looked at, I was always different. Yes, I went to the golf course after my round. I did other things to kids, but I still had a hard time communicating and having friends. And then when I read the report and how my brain functioned and my facial cues and all that, it opened up the door, and I made me realize why I was the way I was. And then I was okay with that. Once you realize, hey, I was that way because of my autism. Okay, now what do I need to do to get better at it? And that's what the blessing of having COVID at the time was that we were at home and we could go see our neuro.
Gave us the time to work on it.
Gave us our time to work on it. So um, we were fortunate when it all happened, and the timing of it all, because it worked out very well.
So I read the report immediately. So,
Oops.
of course I did. So he crumples it up and throws it in the trash.
No, I didn't throw it in the trash.
you
I
did.
just set it over to the side,
And I came in and set it back on the desk. And when I read the report immediately, and he didn't want to, the report said he's going to need extra time to digest the information. So all of a sudden I went, yeah, his norm is 2 weeks. And I'd already clocked that pattern. I had to plant a seed and wait 2 weeks, no matter what it was. And so pretty much close to 2 weeks on the day, he went back and read the report. He was ready to digest the information. But I already knew after reading the report that he'd get there. And the brilliance of the report said, yes, he may take extra time, but when he gets there and he answers whatever this test question or whatever it may be, he was correct 100% of the time, which is unheard of, meaning he's incredibly intelligent. He just needs the time to get there. Now, he was only 50% on reading my facial expressions, which is why I'd have to say sometimes I'm very upset. I don't need you to solve my problem, but I do need you to give me a hug. And I had to learn to get over it, where most people like me would just want him to know, this is when you give me a hug. How can you not know? Give me a hug right now. I'm upset. And he does not know that. But he does now. And we
Getting
could
better,
work at
getting
it.
better at it. Yeah.
Very much better.
It's a work in progress.
We are.
It's a work in progress.
But on the same token, he can go do the laundry and go, listen, I'm going to go put my laundry in. And I'll go, great. Are you doing whites or colors? I'll add mine. And he'll turn around and go, you're not going to understand this, but this is an autistic thing. And I don't want your clothes in the dryer or the washer with mine.
Oh,
And
wow.
now I can go, okay, and not get mad or upset. And I can just let it go.
So you would say that the diagnosis helped your relationship and gave you answers and tools to communicate better and figure out how to be with each other, right?
Correct.
I would definitely say that the diagnosis obviously helped my golf game. It helped my personality, but most importantly, it helped our relationship and our marriage and just spending time together, because there was things that I did that she didn't understand, the things that she would say to me that I didn't understand. And it's just taken that time since we've been diagnosed to work it out
Yeah.
so that we know. And, when something happens, God forbid, you never know when something is going to happen. I think we both react to each other much differently than we did before.
Correct.
Much different. So
now, make no mistake, from my point of view, just because I had this roadmap doesn't mean it was an instantaneous moment of relief. I needed a psychologist, an autistic psychologist, to continue to help translate what this roadmap meant. It was not an instant, oh, thank goodness. Did some things make sense? Yes, but now I had to implement them. And I still had to go learn about me to do that. So, is it an ongoing journey? Yes. I'm just now, in the car driving on the roadmap now.